The shocking and scandalous revelations of H.G. Wells, a literary icon unveiled. Herbert George Wells, commonly known as H.G. Wells, was a pioneer of science fiction literature, best known for his works such as The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine. Beyond his literary genius, Wells' life was rife with scandal, controversy, and intriguing anecdotes that offer a complex view of this influential figure. Here are 10 of the most shocking and fascinating facts about H.G. Wells. Fact number 1. Affair with Amber Reeves. Herbert George Wells, a prominent English writer and futurist, famously engaged in an affair with Amber Reeves, a bright young Cambridge graduate and an emerging feminist thinker, while he was married to his second wife, Jane. Their relationship began around 1908 when Reeves was just 22 years old and Wells was 42, highlighting a significant age gap that scandalized their social circles. The affair led to the birth of a daughter, Anna Jane, in 1909, further intensifying the scandal. Despite Wells's reputation as a proponent of free love, his affair with Reeves challenged the conventional morals of early 20th century Britain. Jane, Wells's wife, despite her awareness of his many infidelities, chose to remain in the marriage, which added layers of complexity to their personal lives. Wells's relationship with Reeves was not just a mere fling but also an intellectual partnership, reflecting his pattern of engaging with intellectually gifted women. Number 2. Spiritualism and the occult. Despite his reputation as a rationalist and a proponent of scientific thinking, Herbert George Wells exhibited a surprising interest in spiritualism and the occult. This aspect of his life contrasted starkly with his public persona. Wells attended seances and was genuinely curious about paranormal activities, reflecting a Victorian fascination with the supernatural. In his 1895 novel, The Wonderful Visit, Wells explores themes of otherworldly beings and supernatural events, showcasing his openness to exploring ideas beyond the immediate grasp of science. His engagement with these themes reveals a more complex and multifaceted personality, intrigued by both the potentials of human progress through science and the mysteries of the spiritual and occult. Number 3. Scandal in the Soviet Union. During Herbert George Wells's visits to the Soviet Union, notably in the 1920s and 1930s, he met with prominent Soviet leaders including Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Wells expressed a controversial appreciation for the Soviet model of government, particularly during a 1934 visit where he interviewed Joseph Stalin. His public commendation of Stalin's leadership, especially his perceived efficiency and the Soviet state's rapid industrial advancement, sparked significant controversy in the West, particularly given the tense geopolitical climate preceding World War II. Wells's comments were widely reported and critiqued, especially his remark to Stalin, "I am looking for the brain of the party," and Stalin's response, "I am that brain." Number 4. A love child revealed. Herbert George Wells's relationship with the renowned writer and feminist Rebecca West led to the birth of their son, Anthony West, in 1914. This event occurred during a time when having a child out of wedlock was particularly scandalous. The relationship between Wells and West was both intellectually and romantically charged, but the existence of their son was kept secret for many years, reflecting the social mores of the period. Their son, Anthony West, would later explore the complexities of his parents' relationship and his own identity in his writings, adding a personal dimension to the public profiles of both Wells and West. Number 5. Proponent of free love. Herbert George Wells's radical endorsement of free love marked him as a precursor to the sexual liberation movements of the later 20th century. Advocating for sexual freedom and open relationships, Wells lived his principles through well-documented relationships with several prominent women of his time, including the writer Rebecca West, with whom he had a son, Anthony West, in 1914, and the writer and traveler Odette Cohn. His personal life, marked by these relationships, embodied his beliefs in the necessity of sexual and intellectual freedom for personal development. These relationships not only provoked his contemporaries but also influenced broader discussions on moral and sexual norms, challenging the restrictive Victorian values of his time and paving the way for more progressive views on relationships and sexuality. Number 6. Eugenics Advocacy. Herbert George Wells's engagement with eugenics is a contentious part of his intellectual legacy. In his 1901 work Anticipations, Wells presented a vision of the future that included the idea of improving the human race through selective breeding, arguing that science could be used to eliminate negative traits and enhance positive ones. His advocacy was grounded in the belief that a scientifically managed society could achieve these ends. However, these views have attracted significant criticism, particularly due to their ethical implications and their unfortunate associations with the eugenic policies later adopted by totalitarian regimes like Nazi Germany. Wells's writings often reflected a tension between his progressive social ideals and his support for practices now widely considered unethical. Number 7. Conflict with George Bernard Shaw. The relationship between Herbert George Wells and George Bernard Shaw, both members of the Fabian Society, was marked by both intellectual rivalry and mutual respect. Their contrasting views on socialism came to a head during a well-publicized public debate in 1906. Shaw, known for his sharp wit, critiqued Wells's tendency towards utopianism and romantic visions of socialism, while Wells countered Shaw's arguments by pointing out his pragmatic, yet cynical approach to social change. Despite these ideological differences, their relationship remained complex, characterized by a spirited rivalry that was as much personal as it was philosophical. Their debates were a spectacle that captivated the public and illustrated the vibrant diversity of socialist thought during the period. Number 8. Predictions of Modern Warfare. In his prophetic 1914 novel, The World Set Free, Herbert George Wells envisioned the development of atomic bombs, describing weapons powered by nuclear reactions that could lead to unparalleled destruction. Drawing from the scientific understanding of his time, particularly the theories of radioactivity pioneered by scientists like Ernest Rutherford and Marie Curie, Wells predicted a type of bomb that could continuously explode. His concept of atomic bombs predated the actual use of nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki by over 30 years, with the real events occurring in August 1945. Wells's uncanny ability to foresee this development, based on emerging scientific principles, not only demonstrated his insight into the potential applications of atomic energy but also solidified his legacy as a visionary thinker who could anticipate profound technological shifts. Number 9. Public fallout with Henry James. Herbert George Wells's literary dispute with Henry James is one of the most famous feuds in literary history. Initially cordial, their relationship deteriorated over diverging views on the nature and purpose of fiction. Wells, who favored social realism and accessible narratives, criticized James's style for being overly intricate and concerned with minutiae, devoid of meaningful substance. This critique culminated in Wells's satirical representation of James in his 1915 novel Boon, where he lampooned James's elaborate prose. James, a proponent of literary modernism, dismissed Wells's novels as simplistic and lacking in artistic depth. Their exchanges, often covered in contemporary literary reviews and journals, not only provided insight into their personal animosities but also reflected broader tensions between realism and modernism in early 20th century literature, making their feud a subject of significant literary interest. Number 10. Controversial political views. Herbert George Wells was not only a literary giant but also a vocal advocate for socialism, significantly influencing early 20th century socio-political thought. As a member of the Fabian Society, he often found himself at odds with more conservative thinkers of his time. His novel, The Shape of Things to Come, 1933, depicted a future where the world is ruled by a dictatorial scientific elite, which many critics interpreted as an implicit endorsement of totalitarian regimes. Wells's political engagements included meetings with pivotal figures such as Vladimir Lenin in 1920 and Joseph Stalin in 1934, which further stoked controversies regarding his political leanings. His forward-thinking views often bordered on prophetic, predicting significant political upheavals and technological advancements, though these were marred by his somewhat controversial stances on governance and power.